Bruchim Abayim, Morai V'Rabotai, to another edition of our Parashat Shiur with the Perush of Zera Shimshon from HaRav Shimshon Nachmani. This has been dedicated by the Rosh Gadolian family, of course, for the Hatzlacha and Zera Shel Kayama, Veldad ben Manaz, Miriam, and Bracha bat Marceldina. It's also dedicated for Zera Shel Kayama, for Tihila, Bracha bat Afsanem, Yonatan ben Faridem, Devorah bat Rachel, and Binyamin ben Reuben, Ariel Yochai ben Afsanel, and Elinor bat Sarah, for Shidduchim, the Zchut of Shidduchim, for Sarah bat Pnina, Sarah bat Rosie, Ezra ben Marceldina, Israel ben Sarah, Orael bat Sarah, and Devorah bat Ronit Navat Hilam, that should have Hatzlacha in the Shidduchim. Amen. This has specifically been dedicated also for Elui Neshama of Aran ben Chacham David, and for Refuah Shelema of Rachel Simcha bat Nahid, that should have full recovery. Amen. So we are starting Parashat Yitro, and we're going to learn together Ma'amar Yudalit, the 14th essay of Zera Shimshon. Of course, Parashat Yitro is filled with interesting episodes, but the one that conquers basically the impression of Parashat Yitro is the fact that we have Aseret HaDibrot. The Torah was given to our nation finally after Yitziat Mitzrayim, and Zera Shimshon deals with the difference in the relationship we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu than the relationship that the Goyim have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the way the mitzvot are done. Of course, we know that even a Goy that does mitzvah, he gets schar. This is really part of the same Gemara that the Zera Shimshon is going to allude to, and the Gemara is in the beginning of Masechet Avodah Zarah. The Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah, Daf Bet Amud Bet, writes, and this is where he starts. He does not really mention the Gemara in its entirety. We're going to probably explain it a little bit more for context. The Gemara says, Klum kafita alenu har kiki. Now this is to explain the background context of this. The Gemara discusses that la'atid lavo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when comes time for giving schar for the mitzvot, olam haba la'atid lavo, the time Mashiach, however you understand that, which seems to be a machloket rishonim by itself, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, figuratively, he holds the Torah in his arms and says, whoever has established this, whoever has kept the Torah, should come and get its schar. And it says, all the umot come running to get schar of olam haba. And Hashem says, not like this, one by one. And Rome, the Romans, because they are the largest, the strongest, and the also everlasting until the time of Mashiach, says the Gemara. They come in and they say, whatever we did, all of the business places and technology, all of those that we did, shvakim, merchatzaot, we developed the world. We raised the level of comfort. And all of that we did because of the Jews, that they should be able to learn Torah and do the mitzvah. Hashem says, Shotim Sheba'olam, you crazy. All of that you did for your own hana'ah, and the Gemara enumerates what they did in a negative way. And they go out, the Persians come in, Malchut Paras, and they have similar claims, they get similar answer, and so on and so forth. And then the Gemara says, after all the back and forth, Gemara says, well, the Goyim are going to say, well, you didn't give us the Torah. You gave it to them. If you would give it to us, we would have also done it. And Gemara says, well, Hashem did give it to them. Hashem misinai bav, zarach miseir lamo, fiam yar paran, ata mervot kodesh, miminot eshtad lamo. HaKadosh Baruch Hu offered the Torah to all of the nations. Elo hamiteman yavo. My ba'i b'seir, My ba'i beparan. Amar Rabbi Yochanan melamed sheichzira HaKadosh Baruch Hu al kol umah velashon velo kibelua. HaKadosh Baruch Hu offered the Torah to all the nations, and they didn't accept it. At sheba etzel Yisrael, until it came to the Jews, and they accepted it. They accepted it with love. So that's not the argument. Says the Gemara, the argument is, Klum kibalnua velo kiamnua. Did we accept it and not done it? Well, that doesn't make sense. Because why didn't you accept it to begin with? So it means, Elakach omrim lefanav. The goyim say in front of Hashem, Klum kafita aleinu har kegigit. Did you force us to accept the Torah just like you forced the Jews to accept the Torah? How do we know that you first forced the Jews? Because it says, V'yityasavu b'tachti dahar, this week's parasha, they stood beneath the mountain, and the Gemara says, HaRav Dibi Bar Chama melamed shkafa HaKadosh Baruch Hu har kegigit al Yisrael. The famous Gemara that HaKadosh Baruch Hu picked up the mountain and held it above their heads. Ve'amar lahem, and he told them, Im atem mekabalim et haTorah mutav. If you accept the Torah, good. Ve'im lav sham teh kvuratchem. And if not, that will end up being your gravesite. That's pretty strong threat. You either accept this or else I'll kill you. So you forced them to accept the Torah. You didn't force us to accept the Torah. Why didn't you force us to accept the Torah? They also would not have accepted it maybe without the force. Right? And says the Gemara, well, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu answer to them. Hashem answers them, well, let's see those who you accepted, how you did. You accepted the Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach, the 7 Noahide laws you did. And you didn't keep them. Hechan kiyamtim. So says the Gemara, Umenalan diru kiyumum. How do we know that they didn't do the Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach? The Tani Rav Yosef, we learned, Amad v'imoded eres rave ater goyim. What does that mean, the pasuk? My Ra'ah, what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu see when he measured the spiritual level, so to speak, of the world? He saw Zayin mitzvot shekibelu alehen b'nei Noach. He saw the 7 Noahide laws that the b'nei Noach accepted upon themselves, and kevan shelo kiyemum amad ve'itiran. Once he saw that they're not keeping it, he changed the rules on them. The Gemara says. Now the Gemara goes back and forth. What exactly he changed? The Gemara's maskara is that they are going to be like a metzuveh that even if they do the mitzvot, they get very minimal schar, like a person that is not commanded on those mitzvot. Fine. Then the goyim say, it's like they don't want to give it up because this is, everything hinges on this. This is the end of time. So they say, Omrim lefanav, Kelum yesh av. How do you know that the Jews did it? Maybe the Jews also didn't do the mitzvot, the Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach. Hashem says, no, I testify that they did it. So, well, with all due respect, you love the Jews. You call them Beni Bechori Israel. A father cannot really testify on the son. You're biased. Says, okay, Shamayim v'aris are going to testify. The heaven and the earth. Right? Ha'azinu hashamayim v'atav tishma aris imre piyeh. Rashi says Hashem is using them as edim. The goyim say no, they can't either because the world stands now. In the time of future in Olam Haba, everyone knows that the world stands on Torah. Even the goyim know it. They see it in retrospect, and they say, well, the world stands. The shamayim v'aris are there only because there is Torah. And therefore, Shamayim v'aretz are also biased to say that they kept the Torah. So therefore, well, discussions to be had on this, in retrospect. But we tried to just get the gist of 2 amudim of the Gemara before we start this, because he's going to be dealing with all these elements without really mentioning them. So, says the Gemara, Hashem tells him, okay, you want edim? No problem. I'm going to have from yourselves to come and testify. Nimrod is going to come and testify that Avraham Avinu kept the Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach. He did not do Avodah Zarah even when his life was at stake. Lavan Arami is going to come and testify Yaakov Avinu's honesty that he didn't steal. Eshet Potifera is going to come and testify that Yosef did not sin with adultery. And so on and so forth. The Gemara says. So says the Gemara, after all of this said and done, the Goyim have one last thing. Say, okay, they basically were checkmate. I said, Tena lanu mirosh v'nasa. I said, give us another chance. Give us another chance. Amru lefanav ribono shel olam, Tena lanu mirosh v'nasena. Give us another chance. Amar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, Shotim sheba'olam, you crazy people. Mi shetarach b'erev Shabbat yochal b'Shabbat. If you work on Erev Shabbat, on Shabbat that you can't work, now you have what to eat. If you didn't prepare in Olam Hazeh, there's nothing to reap in Olam Haba. You lost the chance. You had the chance, you lost it. Mi shelo tarach b'erev Shabbat, me'echan yochal b'Shabbat. אלא אף על פי כן, מצווה קלה יש לי וסוכה שמה. It says, I have a small mitzvah. Mitzvah kala, easy. Sukkah shema. Go build sukkot. Gives them another chance. And all of them excitedly go out. They build a hut on top of their buildings. Lechu v'asu ota. So first the Gemara asks, says, how can you say such a thing? You can't, the Rabbi Yishub Levi says, Asher Arachim Etzavecha Hayom la'asotam, v'lo machal la'asotam. You can't do them in Olam Haba anymore. So says the Gemara, Ela she'en HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba bitronia im beriot. Hashem doesn't want to be brutal. So Hashem gave them another chance. So why is he calling him mitzvah kala? What's an easy mitzvah? Light mitzvah? Because there's no money that you have to spend. You take some board, some wood, some leaves. Easy to do. Now we'll get to that in a few moments. But says the Gemara, they all go and make this sukkot on their balcony, on their porch, on their rooftops. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes it nice and warm. Maktil aleim chama b'tkufat Tammuz, like a summer sun. And it's hot, uncomfortable. Each one of them comes out, kicks the sukkah, and leaves. And Mara says, wait a second, so we would also leave if it's very hot, it's uncomfortable. So yeah, but you don't kick. That's the Gemara. And therefore they're rejected. Says the Zera Shimshon. Now let's learn together what he says. He brings the gist of the Gemara in very, very short words. And then he asks a number of questions, like he usually does. Says, first of all, why, based on the fact that they didn't do the Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach, the 7 Noahide laws, because of that, you're going to now destroy their options? Well, the Gemara says at the end of Masechet Makot, this is on Daf Chaf Gimel, the Gemara there says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give us a lot of opportunities. Chaf Gimel would be the end of Masechta. Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu lezakot et Yisrael lefichach irba lahem Torah u'mitzvot. And Rambam famously explains this because even if you don't do most of the mitzvot, you do one properly. And then, like the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avot, mitzvah goreret mitzvah. One mitzvah brings you to do more mitzvot. And from one, little by little, you come to do more. Ha'ma'or sheba machzira lemutav. Little by little, you come to do more and more. Right? The Gaon explains in his Perush and Mishlei in Perek Aleph Pasuk Chaf Gimel that whenever you do a mitzvah, it creates an enormous shefa, spiritual force. That force does not sit until it forces you to do more of the same. And chas v'shalom, if a person does something that generates a negative force, spiritual force, also is the same way. Right? So when you do one mitzvah goreret mitzvah. So Gaon writes that's the sod of mitzvah goreret mitzvah. In a deeper sense, that's how it operates. When you do one mitzvah, it brings you to do more mitzvot. and so on and so forth. Now, so therefore, says the Zera Shimshon, so what that they didn't do some of the mitzvot? If you would give them all of the Torah, they're saying a good argument. You should have given us and forced us the whole Torah, and then we will do some of it. And from the some of it, we'll come to do more of it, and from more of it, we'll do good. So that's the first argument. And by the way, the Jews also were not doing in all the generations, says the Zera Shimshon, all the mitzvot. But that's the Parashat by Yitziat Mitzrayim. Halalu of the Avodah Zarah, v'halalu of the Avodah Zarah. Many Jews did Avodah Zarah in Mitzrayim. Now Avraham Avinu didn't. HaRav Mishal v'Azariah didn't. Right? The Gemara says Nebuchadnezzar should come and testify that HaRav Mishal v'Azariah did not bow to the tzelim. But Jews in Mitzrayim did. Right? And they were barren from other mitzvot as well. It says, Pasuk in Yecheskel, I came and I saw you, ve'at erom ve'eryah. We say this in Haggadah Shel Pesach. Va'ayevor alayich, va'erech mitposeset bedamayich, va'omar lach bedamayich chayi, va'omar lach bedamayich chayi, which means HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them two new mitzvot. The mitzvah of Dam Milah and Dam Pesach. And in the zchut of those two new mitzvot that they accepted, and they did, they came to accept the rest of the mitzvot coming out of Mitzrayim. Not because of the 7 Noahide laws. So you got a problem over here. That's a very good question. Give them more, they would do it. Well, 7 mitzvot of Noah, some periods of time the Jews were not keeping those necessarily either. Furthermore, he says a second question. The mitchila umot omrim sheYisrael lo kiemu, v'achar kach shamu shekiemu ota. They say, the Goyim say, well, give it to us. The Jews also did not keep the mitzvot. Then when Hashem says, no, I have edim, I have testimony that they did, they say, well, give it to us from the beginning. Give us another chance. If give us another chance is a good argument, why don't they say it in the beginning? Just ask for another chance. And from the answer that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives them, shotim, are you crazy? Seems like it was not a good question. Give it to us from beginning is not a good question. It's not. And the maskara of the Gemara is, only because Hashem does not want to be cruel, He gives them another, not because they deserve another chance. You would not give them another chance. Right? And therefore, the question begs, what were they thinking in the beginning? And what changed at the end? In the beginning, they thought that this is not a good argument. And at the end, it becomes a good argument. How did that work exactly? What is, if this is not really deserving, why are they asking for that? Right? What's the logic behind the ask? And the third question would be that if really someone that did not work on Erev Shabbat doesn't get to have something on Shabbat, if you didn't prepare, you don't get. If that's the truth, which is, then my kama lahem afal pichen. What is this bending the rules of saying, well, even with all of that, I'll give you another chance? Why would you give them another chance? What does it mean that Hashem is not cruel? It's the day of judgment. It's Yom Adin. It's not a matter of cruelty. It's a matter of justice. So they should get justice. If they don't deserve it, they shouldn't get it. What is this bending the rule doing over here? And the fourth question is, he gives them mitzvah of sukkah. Why not tefillin? Why not Shabbat? Why sukkah? There are a lot of mitzvot that they don't have chisaron kis. Give them a different. Why sukkah bedavka? And the fifth question, final question, he says, Lama maktir aleim chama. If you already gave them the mitzvah, why are you making it hot? Why are you making it hard for them? It's a situation that a Jew would be patur from that mitzvah also. So if you're telling me that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not babit trunya, Hashem is not cruel, right? So let them do the mitzvah. Why are you taking it away from them once you already gave it? Now he tries to answer this with one yesod. There's 5 questions, all of them, with one fundamental difference between us and the goyim. which is very important for us to bear in mind for ourselves even. V'yuvam b'akdim mashkatav Keter Yosef. What the Kadmonim writes on the pasuk of David HaMelech in Tehillim, Perek Samechet, Tehillim says, Yakum Elohim, Yafusu Oyevav. And writes the Keter Yosef, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu deals with the Goyim is Yakum Elokim. It's Midat Hadin. With the Bnei Yisrael is Midat HaRachamim. Umot hem Mitzad Hadin. Why this is a long discussion. Maybe towards the end we circle back to this a little bit. It's a long discussion with a lot of background why this is the way it is. But says the Keter Yosef, that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu's relationship to Am Yisrael is. With Midat HaRachamim is less of judgment. And that's why we say, Kerachem Aval Banim. So, Rachamenu Kerachem Aval Banim. Hashem, have mercy on us like a father with his children. Ulfish Yisrael hem mitzat harachamim. Therefore, because this is true, Mo'il lahem atshuva. There are two differences. He doesn't spell it out clearly, but there are two differences for a goy, for a goy that does gezel, right? If a Jew does gezel, what happens? First of all, you have to have shaveh pruta. It has to be worth something. If you stole something that's not even shaveh pruta, well, you're not a good person. Still, you're a horrible person. But you're not chayav unless than shaveh pruta. Eno Yehudi is neherag al pachod mishaveh pruta. There's no mercy. You still, it's death penalty, right? Secondly, a Jew that steals, there's a mitzvah of hashavat ha'gezelah, right? Lav hanitak la'aseh. You return it. You return the gezelah. You could fix it afterwards. You could do tshuva, and you could fix it. So therefore, by an eno Yehudi, there's no returning. It's not eno nitan le'shavon. It's not fixable in that way, right? And therefore, there are two elements of difference. One is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is more with Midat HaRachamim. And secondly, there is the concept of tshuva that you could do. Tshuva, like the Ramchal explains, is Midat HaRachamim, because if you killed somebody, you can bring him back. If you created a mamzer, you could undo that. You can't undo that. So tshuva shouldn't really work, says the Ramchal in Mislad Yisharim. But it works because of the Rachamim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Midat HaRachamim, that you uproot completely the Ratzon, the original will and desire that you had, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu considers that as though you uprooted the Ma'aseh, that it was never done. That's a tremendous Rachamim of Hashem. Tremendous Midat HaRachamim. That, says the Zera Shimshon, is specific for Yidden. And says the Zera Shimshon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who forced the Jews to keep the Torah, how can you do such a thing? He picked up the mountain kegigit, like how can you do that? How are they hayav to keep the mitzvot? Anus Rachmana Patre. Actually, the Gemara says this. The Gemara says in Shabbat, Masechet Shabbat, Daf Pechet Amud Aleph, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu forced us into acceptance of the Torah is good, because now if we don't keep it, we could say we forced us. Right? The Gemara says it. Now, not as a real argument. Of course, we accepted the Torah afterwards. Hadur kiblu abimei Achashverosh. There's a lot to say about that. But the structure of pushing them into it by force, how does that work exactly? So, what did they think in the beginning? And the answer, Mishum de Yisrael and Besod Avadim. They wanted to say originally that the Goyim wanted to say that the Jews are like Avadim. An Eved, there's no Tanat Ones. You can't say I was forced. You're supposed to do it, even by force, right? But like he himself explains elsewhere earlier in this week's parasha, over there it says, based on Gemara in Masechet Shabbat Daf Pechet Amud Bet, that every dibur that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, the neshama of Am Yisrael came out, and then Hashem had to be mechayeh hametim. And it says the Zera Shimshon earlier on that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu did Chiyat hametim, he gave them a new neshama. They ended up being more pure, different human beings than when they started. This different neshama came. Like by Yitzchak Avinu, that by Akedah he got a new neshama, and now he could have children. Before, and he couldn't have children. We discussed this before, right? But now the Jews says Hashema, every neshama was a new neshama based on the Gemara in Shabbat Daf Pechet Amud Bet. So they were banim, not like avadim. They were like banim. And therefore he says, now we could answer all the questions. Now let's learn the Gemara together, based on this fundamental difference. He says, with this we could understand. How so? That because in the beginning HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to the Umot HaOlam, any person that learned Torah, come and get the schar. And the Goyim answered, they said, well, you didn't force us. You forced the Jews. We would have accepted it if you forced us with the har gigigit. And then the HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers them, Shlo kimu sheva mitzvot, that you didn't keep the seven mitzvot, original 7 mitzvot. And don't tell me that if I would have given you more mitzvot, mitzvah goreret mitzvah like why the Jews, because you don't have that. That they could not do some of the mitzvot and then fix it, do tshuva and midat harachamim, that's specific for Yidden, for Bnei Yisrael. By a Eno Yehudi that does an avera, there's no fixing it afterwards, it's doomed. So if you didn't do 7 mitzvot HaBnei Noach, you could not have gotten the 613 and say, oh, we'll do 2 of the 613, and then from that it will grow little by little, and then we'll fix the fact that we didn't do the previous ones before, and we do. There's no such a thing. That's only for banim. It's only for those who are subject to midat harachamim. We'll get to that in just a moment, something that he doesn't explain, and I think it's crucially important to be explained. They say, well, the Jews also did not do 7 mitzvot HaBnei Noach. And therefore there's no difference between us and the Jews, say the Goyim. The Jews should be more punished from the rest of the nations. They could have done a little bit of it, right? And they didn't. Especially with tshuva. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers, he says, no, they did it. Yeah, you can have here and there maybe, but Avraham Avinu, all the leading figures, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the Shvatim, Yosef, Chaim Shalom Azariah, Daniel, right? That the Belshazzar should come and say that he wasn't even mebatel mitzvah of tefillah. That now, according to everyone, is the oraita. So it says the Zera Shimshon, Uchshemodiim umot shakadosh baruch hu makpid. When they see that Hashem protects the Jews and has testimony that they kept the Shabbat mitzvot b'nei Noach, then they say the following. It says, you see that Tanat honest doesn't work. ועל כורכך צריך לומר שאף הם במדרגת עבדים, ומעתה שנתת תורה ותשובה לישראל, אף על פי שהיו במדרגת עבדים. Even though that they're in מדרגת עבדים, that they don't have Tanat honest, so he still gave them the Torah. After all that, give it to us as well. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ואף על פי דקיים עלן, מי שטרח בערב שבת, הקיים עלן נמי דמי שאינו יכול לטרוח בערב שבת. The Goyim are saying, well, we couldn't work on Erev Shabbat. You're telling me that whoever didn't work on Erev Shabbat doesn't have on Shabbat? We couldn't work on Erev Shabbat because he didn't give us all the mitzvot. So says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're shotim shba'olam. Because even according to your argument, You won't get all the Taryag, you'll get just the 7 mitzvot ben Noach. And a kedeh parasato, you can work only a little bit. Only mikzat of the mitzvot. But he says, even that you didn't do. ואתם לא תוכלו לזכות לשכר עולם הבא, שזה אינו אלא למי שמקיים כולה. עולם הבא you're not going to get, but you want to get a little bit. אלא אף על פי כן, לפי שאתם באים מכוח הדין של שבת. Once you're coming based on the הלכה of מי שטרח בערב שבת, אני אתן לכם מצווה קלה. I'll give you a little mitzvah. Right? Because now that's like din. You're saying, well, we should at least be getting a little bit, like a person that's stuck, can't work on Shabbat, doesn't know when Shabbat is, right? What's the halacha? If you're in the middle of a midbar and you don't know what day is Shabbat, right? So what do you do? For working, you have to work to eat, right? You don't know what day is Shabbat. So every day, the halacha is every day you do enough work to be able to eat that day, and that's it. And tomorrow you couldn't work from yesterday for today because maybe it's Shabbat yesterday. So tomorrow, so every day you work. So it comes out that even on Shabbat it's mutar for you to work a little bit for that same day because you don't know where Shabbat is. That's the whole argument of the goyim. Gets a little yeshivish over here, a little lamdish, but that's the argument. So Hashem says, okay, I'll give you a mitzvah, a little mitzvah. I'll give you sukkah. But says the Zera Shimshon, that's why Hashem gave them sukkah, because sukkah has to be silata meruba mechamata. The shade has to be more than the sun. And shade and sun, it corresponds with rachamim and din. Right? And that's why he says, for them, it will be, that's the mitzvah that they got, because for them is the primary thing is din. For us, the primary thing is rachamim. That exact difference makes the difference over here as well. Now, I want to just add a little bit to this. Towards the end, there is a beautiful essay from Rabbi Chaim Kanievski. I think in the new ones, they printed it in Perek Samech Vav, Siman Samech Vav. In the earlier prints, is much earlier. And he explains a fundamental difference. It says, by Avodah Zarah, the Ovdei Avodah Zarah, they're not Avadim LaAvodah Zarah. It's very different. Someone that serves an idol of the Avodah Zarah, they were not a servant to the Avodah Zarah. You come on Sunday, you sell your Gaon, you buy some Gan Eden, and Hazak Baruch, see you next week. Right? You could do whatever you want in the meantime. As long as you believe to the Savior, to the this, and all of the Avodah Zarah have a very similar thing. You do your duties, you pay your dues, so to speak, of bringing sacrifice, whatever it is, and then the rest of the thing are, certain things that you can't do, certain things that you have to do, and the rest of your life is yours. There's no concept of I am an eved. I am a servant to this. That every moment of my life is governed by this. There's no such a concept. By us, that's exactly how it is. Means that every aspect of your life. Doesn't mean that you wake up, how you wake up, you sleep, what direction you sleep, how you sleep. Are you with clothing, without clothing? You get up, you first put the clothing, which you first. It is not a second in life. Lo tarpeni ad bil'iro ki, says Eov. Even the time it takes to swallow your saliva, there's mitzvot on every second. That's something that's miyuchad by us, because we connect. You wonder why HaKadosh Baruch Hu deals with us with midat harachim like a son? Because we are the manifestation of that Father in the next generation, so to speak. It's a manifestation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chokhmah and Torah in the world. We live Torah every moment. You breathe Torah, you act Torah. It's very different. It's not just more of the same. It's a completely different category of life. But a person's dedication to Torah is in such a way that I'm an Eved. David, we say this in Hallel, we sing it. Ani avdecha ben amatecha. Why avdecha ben amatecha? Because an Eved that was born into slavery doesn't even know any. I'm not desiring anything. I don't know any. I don't want anything else. I want to be your Eved. It's not like a person that was enslaved and now every time he look back, I miss it. I don't desire anything else. I want every moment of my life to be dedicated to you. That's how we accepted the Torah. And that is Midat HaRachamim. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them Sukkah. Because Sukkah is the mitzvah that you go into the mitzvah. It encompasses every aspect of your life. The Midrash says this, the Midrash Rabbah, and the Pasuk, in Shir HaShirim, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu knocks, he says, Kol dodi dofek, Hashem is knocking on the door. Pitchili, achoti rayati, yonati tamati. Open the door. And the Midrash says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to come into your life. Doesn't want to be by the door and you pay whatever you have to pay. You pay your taxes and he goes. She wants to be involved with your life. She wants to be a part of it. Pitchili. Open the door. Bring me into your life. V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti betocham. And the Gemara says, it doesn't say betocho. It says, build me a tabernacle, a mikdash, that I shall live amongst them. The Gemara says, well, betocho you should say. Grammatically correct, it says, build me a building, I will dwell in it. It says, in them. Chazal tell us, in them, in every heart of every man and man. That the ultimate thing is to bring the mikdash inside our homes. Like the Ramban says, building the mikdash was supposed to duplicate. The pinnacle of that is that the house of every person becomes like Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they had it in their ohel. Says the Ramban, now we couldn't have that, so we built a building at least to focus on it. But the same three nisim and elements of Shekhinah, you had it on the ohel of Avot and Imahot. There was an Anan HaKavod on above, hanging on top of their ohel. There was bracha mitzvah be'isa, that the bread would never go bad and was warm and fresh always, and the candle would never go out of the imahot. Shekhinah lived with them. They lived with the Shekhinah. Shachanti betocham. That's how we accept the Torah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because of that, deals with us with Midat HaRachamim. He says, mitzvah koreret mitzvah. You do one, you start with small, and it grows, it becomes bigger. You could do tshuva, you could fix it, even if you didn't do it. All of those elements that is miyuchad, is specific to us, is because in this week's parasha, we became banim lamakom. We became the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because we love it. Because we live with the Torah, not just paying taxes. I always say, a Shulchan Aruch Jew does not have a continuation. Someone that keeps every Seif Katan in Shulchan Aruch. It's great, don't get me wrong. I wish all the Jews should. But that will never last, because you're paying taxes to Hashem. Have you ever seen somebody that pays 1 penny extra tax? If you're a good American citizen, you pay all the taxes, you don't cheat, you don't cut corners, pay it to the last penny, but only to the last penny. It's not a love, you don't love Uncle Sam. It's not a relationship of love that doesn't last. Can't transmit that to your next generation. But love and mesirut nefesh. Mesirut nefesh that says, I'll be dead otherwise. Shamte kevuratchem. I keep this with all my life. Bechol nafshecha. And that's the analogy of kaf alehem har kigigit. And that's something that is so elevated. This is not all, just the first element of this is from Shlomo Chaim Kanievski. Other ones, additions we get giving over here, but that is a completely different way of looking at life. Completely different way of looking at our relationship with the Torah as we accept it. Again, every year, Parashat Yitro. It's something that we cherish as a relationship, not a book of laws. It's an element of relationship between a son and a father, Avinu, before Malkenu. And that's something so powerful, so beautiful, and so fundamental to the Parashat. Bezat Hashem, she'obi zocher to that. Amen.